Hey there! This week's Future Here Now post focused on how to develop future-ready skills, starting with ourselves as individuals and ending with building future-ready communities. The three big topics I talked about in the keynote that I shared last week form the basic framework, and you'll get the last three parts of the keynote practice videos this week as well. You can find everything on the wiseeconomy.substack.com homepage. I will also be sharing a special tool for understanding and working with these unfolding changes to my full, that is paid, subscribers later this week. You can become a paid subscriber and get a week free to unlock all of Future Here Now at the link to subscribe, wiseeconomy.substack.com. I think you'll find the full range of Future Here Now content helpful. If you're interested in a talk or a workshop or a webinar, let us know. Future subscribers, or full subscribers rather, also get 20% off on all speaking events. So, since we know that an epochal change is unfolding all around us, and we know that a lot of our frustrations are resulting from the mismatch between our assumptions and this changing reality, it wouldn't make any sense for us to stick our heads in the ground and pretend none of it's happening. But it's very easy for us to do exactly that. The real challenge is that we're talking about changing very deep, hardwired assumptions and expectations, and as a species, we don't do that readily. But we can do that, and brain research backs this up. The key is to practice these new expectations and behaviors just like you'd practice learning to ride a bike or shoot a basket or drive a car or any other skill. We have to do the thing over and over and over again until new neural pathways form and that skill becomes second nature. The problem is that when we're trying to learn a new skill, it's hard. We fumble, we mess up, we get hurt, we get frustrated, and as adults, we tend to avoid learning new skills because it's hard and because we don't want to look bad in front of other people or look bad to ourselves. And that lack of practice and our avoidance of situations that require us to think or move or do in a different way makes it all the harder for us when we have to do that, which is a big piece of why so many adults are struggling with and fight against any change in their status quo. And if we struggle with learning new skills as an adult, you get an inkling of how much work it takes to change our base assumptions and expectations about the world. The thing is, though, that future is not waiting for us to finish complaining and start working on that rewiring. The longer we wait, the harder it will be for us to adapt. So, if we care about future-ready organizations and communities, we have to work on our own future readiness too. I can affirm that this is a long process. I started more than 10 years ago, and I'm definitely still at it. But we can start building those habits with a few small steps. The first section that I'm going to describe in a minute lists the most important future-ready habits that I'd encourage you to work on building in yourself. You won't be able to do all of it across all of your thinking immediately. So after the first list, there's a sketch of where you're trying to go, beginning with the end and all of that. And the second list that I'm going to give you is 4 very concrete things that you can do today to start moving in that direction. So these might feel awkward or weird or difficult, but they're little. They're not going to take much time, so give it a try. And for the conventionally motivated among you, you can even get extra credit. So here's the first section. The fundamentals of a future-ready brain. First, get in the habit of challenging your own assumptions. Why do I think that thing? What evidence do I have? What other answers could be a possible alternative to what I'm assuming? Second, get in the habit of listening to people and finding people who are outside of your usual experience. What can I learn from their perspective? What do they see that I don't see? How are they encouraging me to think and act differently? Third one, examine your mental binaries for evidence that they're not really binaries, but they're continuums. Is there evidence for experiences that fall between the 2 or 3 or however many categories that I'm used to thinking about? Are there situations that are a blend between categories that I normally think of as set in stone? What am I missing when I take those categories as a given? The fourth is to interrogate how you personally respond to change, uncertainty, ambiguity. What do I do? Does my jaw clench? Do my shoulders clench? Do I want to fight back? Or am I curious? Am I open? Am I listening? What's my natural reaction, my initial reaction? Now, how do you put that into action? Here's a few easy things to do. First, pick out an assumption that you make regularly about yourself or about others and list 3 possible alternatives. Extra credit is to do that 3 times so that you start to get more comfortable with that kind of challenging yourself and you start to see patterns. Second, find 3 sources for information about something that you care about, sources that fall outside of what you normally listen or read or watch. You can use YouTube, Goodreads, Media Matters, Wikipedia, and lots of other sources to find someone who's talking about that subject, who looks or sounds different from you, has a different background, does something other than what you'd usually expect. Now, you have to use your critical thinking skills. Just because someone's different doesn't mean they should be crazy land. Extra credit is to find sources that are talking about that issue that you made assumptions about before. The third is to pick a binary, something that you're used to thinking of as this or that, like work, home, water, land, and see what you can find out in the world that falls between those 2 categories. You could do that as a thought experiment, or it might be a research sort of rabbit hole. The extra credit is to pay attention to how that makes you feel intellectually and physically. 4, identify a time in your life, preferably recently, when something changed unexpectedly or in a way that you didn't like. How did you respond externally? What was your behavior? And how did you respond internally? Were your mind and your body together, or are they on different pages? And if you had to do it over again, how would you act differently? Or what would you tell your inner self? Extra credit on this one is to write a note to that inner self and stick it in your underwear drawer, someplace private, where you'll come across it every once in a while. Let me know what you think and whether those kinds of practices are something that helps you to become more future ready, more comfortable with a world that is going to be very different than it has been in our past.